G'day, wonderful listeners. This is Trev, back again with episode 23 of Trev's Talk. Last week I left off speaking about Lauren from the USA, who sent me a beautiful picture, made over many months, from hundreds of tiny coloured beads. She said she did not know why she picked me to send it to. The picture was of the Holy Family in a nativity scene, Joseph, Mary and baby Jesus at his birth in a stable. So, wondering why Lauren had picked me to send it to, I questioned whether Our Lady had prompted her to pick me, and if so, was Our Lady sending me a message? The picture was depicting a traditional family, a man and a woman joining together to care for a child. That also made me recall my journal entry of the 23rd of February 2010, which states, "On my morning walk I thought a lot about how much I owe Our Lady. I really owe her everything, as she led me to go to Medjugorje to have my experiences with the Holy Spirit. When thinking of how she intercedes for us, like in the wedding at Cana, I was given strong GBs. I think this means I should use that story and its implications when giving talks about Our Lady. Maybe it is her that gives me the GBs." End of journal entry. In that instance, Mary gave Jesus a bit of a push to change the water to wine for a wedding celebration. Traditional weddings were the order of the day back then. The man married the woman to raise a family. Back in episode 12, I spoke of an encounter with the Holy Spirit on my very first hours on Apparition Hill in Medjugorje, when I was bodily possessed and controlled to do a series of strange action events. One of the events was to stand at the foot of a wooden cross and be manipulated into a sudden forced bow to a postcard picture of Our Lady, pinned at head height on that wooden cross. I knew without any doubt that the bow meant that the Holy Spirit was commanding me to work for Our Lady. I did not have any understanding of just how I would fit in that relationship. But back in episode 15, I quoted some journal entries that give clues to where I do fit. For instance, on the 30th of March 2011, the journal states, "It's 4:30 a.m. I was lying in bed awake and thinking about this job I have to do for Our Lady. I thought that if I did a good job, I would be rewarded, and I received a mild surge of pleasure. That made me feel good and loved as well." End of journal entry. And for another journal entry regarding Our Lady's part in my life, I refer to journal entry of the 26th of February 2011, which states, "I got up at 4:45 a.m, having just been lying in bed receiving some subtle pleasure while thinking about my relationship with Our Lady. It was lovely to get some pleasure again, as I've not had some for a while." End of journal entry. Remember in episode 5, I told how I had a dream to show my relationship with Our Lady is as my guide and teacher. Then 2 days after the 26th of February journal entry, it states, "When thinking about telling prayer groups that Our Lady is pleased with them, I got serious GBs. When thinking about telling people whose rosaries have turned gold that Our Lady is also pleased with them, I got more GBs. This seems to mean that I can speak for her. Certainly, in some circumstances at least." End of journal entry. So firstly, the Holy Spirit commanded me to work for Our Lady when he made me bow to her on Apparition Hill, And then secondly, there came several instances of ecstasy pleasure and GBs confirming, 1, I will be rewarded if I do a good job for her, and 2, I have a teacher-to-student relationship with her, and 3, in some cases at least, I can actually speak for her or speak on her behalf. Going back to where we started this episode and questioning whether Our Lady prompted Lauren to send me the traditional family picture from the USA, and accepting the notion that Our Lady gave me serious goosebumps on a walk thinking about the traditional wedding at Cana, were all to make me believe a wedding or marriage should only ever be between a man and a woman getting together to raise a family. And those words, wedding and marriage, should only be used to describe a traditional wedding or marriage. Same-sex couples need to use other words like committals or a civil union, don't you think? Remember, you can comment on my YouTube or Spotify podcasts. Also, I believe Greta Thunberg, who I spoke highly of in episode 5, was courageous just recently when she and some others tried to sail a boat loaded with much-needed supplies into Gaza. I believe, 1, any supplies would be of a help for the starving kids in Gaza, and 2, Greta highlighting the suffering there should bring the inhumane situation to the notice of the wider world. Greta is an outstanding citizen and should be seriously considered for a Nobel Peace Prize. She, at the young age of 22, is giving her life to highlighting climate change needs, and now also the highlighting of men, women and kids suffering the destruction of their families and forced homelessness. Our Lady at Medjugorje is asking us to turn to God for peace. She says, if enough people pray, even wars can be averted. She has been telling us this since her appearance in June 1981. Another thing needing to change, I believe, is the strict rule that priests in the Catholic Church must not marry. This rule is of the Church, not the Bible, and I asked my AI assistant what it knew of this rule, and it states, the Catholic Church's rule that priests do not marry, commonly known as clerical celibacy, is a discipline, not a doctrine, meaning it's a practice that could theoretically change, rather than a core belief of the faith. End of statement. So it could be changed by the Church, and priests could then marry if they should wish to do so. I have personal reasons making me believe it would be better if priests could marry. I lived a normal married life before going to Medjugorje in 1990, but on my return, due to rules of the Church, I ceased living as husband and wife and began living life as brother and sister, so I could take part in communion. This meant I switched to living a celibate life, no sex. I went for about 18 months being totally celibate, and then got into a relationship that culminated in a sexual encounter, which, together with the stress of my marriage terminating, led me into a psychotic episode. This revelation is well covered in Chapter 5 of my book. Prior to and after that one-off sexual act, I was experiencing really weird and radical sexual fantasies. I put that down to the long period of celibacy. I mentioned the weird and radical fantasies to my doctor of the time, and he said changes in one's usual sexual behaviour or sexual energy could lead to serious mental illness. My belief is that married priests should have a more normal, stable sexual relationship than one practicing celibacy. I know that bottling up one's sexual energy can cause weird fantasies and might lead one to doing unwanted behaviour. So I believe being married is one of the factors that help one to avoid pedophile disorder. Being celibate and bottling up one's sexual energy could be a factor in one being drawn to pedophilia. More research is needed in this area, and I look forward to any comments. Well, wonderful listeners, I remind you that to get the full benefit of these podcast episodes, you really need to listen from the start. You should go back and listen from episode 1 if you've only just started listening. And please subscribe, like, share and comment on YouTube if you listen on that platform, or follow, like, rate and comment if you're on Spotify. That's it for this week. I look forward to your company again next week. Thanks for listening. This is Trev, tuning out.